As Burkina Faso's Independence Day celebrations continued in full swing, a sharp whistle cut through the air. The bullet passed just centimeters from Ibrahim Traoré and lodged in the flag behind him. In the moment of panic, guards immediately protected the leader, but Traoré stood up with surprising calmness, his expression reflecting anger rather than fear. Everyone knew this was no accident. The assassin had used a special green bullet that was only found in the secret services of a certain country. As soon as Traoré returned to the palace, he gathered his trusted team of 5 people and initiated the most secret investigation in the country's history. In the palace's secret meeting room, Traoré took his place at the head of the table. With him were his loyal assistants. Intelligence Chief Diallo was a sharp-minded man known for his 30 years of experience. Military advisor Colonel Sankara was a former Special Forces commander known for his tactical genius. Foreign Affairs advisor Ms. Zongo was a respected figure in diplomatic circles. Justice Minister Ouedraogo was known as the country's most honest lawyer. Lieutenant Colonel Konate, chief of Traoré's Special Protection Team, was like the leader's shadow and went everywhere with him. "What happened today was no coincidence," said Traoré. "Someone tried to kill me and almost succeeded. We must find the forces behind this assassination attempt. No foreign power can prevent Burkina Faso from charting its own course." The first clue came from the bullet. The forensic team determined that the green bullet was made of a special alloy and was manufactured only in a specific factory in Europe. The bullet was coated with a rare toxic substance that would cause certain death if it wounded the target. Traoré's intelligence chief, Diallo, began investigating who had received the last shipments of these bullets. "This is a Polish-made T7 Venom bullet," said Diallo, showing the report in his hand. "It's only used in certain special operations units and isn't available on the market. The poison inside immediately paralyzes the victim and causes cardiac arrest. From the firing marks, we estimate the weapon used was a special SVD sniper rifle." As the investigation deepened, Traoré continued with normal state affairs, but he no longer trusted anyone. He tasted his own food, used different vehicles instead of his car, and even attended meetings wearing armored vests. He slept in a different place each night and kept it secret when he left the city. The palace's security protocols were completely renewed, and all personnel were subjected to security clearance again. Traoré was applying a strategy he had learned years ago at the military academy. If you want to know your enemy, analyze their attack pattern. Every night, he worked for hours on files, developing theories about who the assassin might be. He was rereading his country's history since the colonial period. Burkina Faso's natural resources had been exploited by Western powers. His recent restrictions on the privileges of French companies and rapprochement with China and Russia had created discomfort in the Western world. A week later, the first suspect emerged. Philippe Moreau, a French diplomat, had made unusual travels in the country over the past 3 months. When his phone records were examined, it was discovered that he had sent encrypted messages from a region near the border on the day of the parade. When questioned, Moreau claimed this was a diplomatic mission, but the French government did not confirm such a mission. "Mr. Ambassador, we expect an explanation," said Foreign Affairs advisor Zongo in an official letter. "We demand transparency regarding the activities of diplomatic personnel. Otherwise, this situation will damage relations between the two countries." The French Ministry of Foreign Affairs immediately issued a statement. "Moreau's activities are entirely within the framework of his official duties. We have no intention of interfering in Burkina Faso's internal affairs. We categorically reject the assassination allegations." However, this explanation did not satisfy anyone. France had repeatedly been documented supporting coups and assassinations in its former colonies in Africa. As the investigation progressed, Traoré and his team realized they were facing an international conspiracy. Burkina Faso's discovery of new lithium deposits and plans to grant operating rights to Chinese companies had disturbed Western powers. When the clues came together, it emerged that a multinational mining company was behind the assassination attempt. A company called Mineral Resources International has increased its activities in our country over the past 6 months, Colonel Sankara said at the meeting. The same company is active in other West African countries. And interestingly, there are former British and French intelligence officers on the company's board of directors. Traoré made a secret visit to the lithium mines in the north of the country. When he spoke with the local people there, he had obtained interesting information. In recent months, foreign technical experts had visited the region and taken soil samples. These individuals had introduced themselves as environmental consultants, but the equipment they used was the same as that used by mining companies. Burkina Faso's lithium reserves were of critical importance for modern technology. Global competition was heating up for this mineral used in everything from electric vehicle batteries to smartphones. Traoré wanted to use this wealth of his country for the welfare of the people, but international companies were in favor of continuing the old colonial order. But the biggest shock was yet to come. The investigation extended to Traoré's own protection team. It was revealed that the operation chief, Lieutenant Colonel Konate, had unexplained accounts in Swiss banks. When Konate was questioned, he confessed to leaking information about security protocols in the palace to the assassin. He said he only provided information in exchange for promised money and did not know the identity of the assassin. "Why?" asked Traoré, not taking his eyes off his old friend. "We've been working shoulder to shoulder for 10 years. I entrusted you with everything." Konate bowed his head. "My daughter is receiving treatment in France. The surgery costs were very high. When they approached me, they only offered money in exchange for information. I didn't want you to be killed. I only shared the ceremony program and the route. Forgive me, Commander." Traoré stood up and looked out the window. This had always been Africa's fate. Poverty and desperation drove people to betray their own brothers. "The state will cover the costs needed for your daughter's treatment, but treason against the homeland cannot be forgiven. The court will render its verdict." Diallo and his team calculated the direction from which the bullet came and identified the likely shooting point. The sniper rifle left in the hotel room and some personal belongings provided clues to who it was. The fingerprints belonged to a Serbian sniper wanted in the international database. His name was Dragan Kovic, and he had been involved in assassination incidents in 3 different countries before. "Kovic is a professional killer," said Diallo, opening the file in his hand. "He was trained in the former Yugoslav Special Forces. After the Bosnian War, he began working as a mercenary. He is known to have killed a minister in Somalia, a general in the Democratic Republic of Congo, and a businessman in Venezuela. He is wanted by Interpol with a red notice." When hotel staff were questioned, they said they remembered a blonde man who had rented the room with a German businessman identity. The man was very polite and left generous tips. He had not aroused any suspicion. Traoré was now beginning to solve the conspiracy. However, Kovic could not be found, and the forces behind him were still in the shadows. Traoré sent an official letter to the United Nations, condemning the assassination attempt and requesting an international investigation. Within the country, he increased border security and completely restructured the intelligence service. Justice Minister Ouedraogo suggested filing a case under international law. "This is an attack not just on you, but on a sovereign state and democracy. We should apply to the International Court of Justice." But Traoré knew this would take time and might not yield results. There were very few cases that African countries had won against Western powers in international courts. He had to deliver justice with his own hands. Traoré made a speech to the public. "My dear citizens, today an attack was carried out not only against me, but against our independence and sovereignty. Foreign powers want to continue exploiting Africa's riches. We will not allow this. The people of Burkina Faso will determine their own destiny. Our natural resources will be used for the welfare of our people. No bullet, No threat can turn us away from this path. The speech created great enthusiasm among the people. Thousands took to the streets to show support for Traoré. Anti-French sentiments in the country strengthened. Students organized protest demonstrations in front of French cultural centers. A month later, Kovach's passport was found in a vehicle caught at the Ivory Coast border. When the driver was questioned, he confessed to transporting the assassin across the border and dropping him off at the airport. Kovach had boarded a plane to Paris. Traoré officially requested Kovach's extradition from France, but French authorities reported that there was no record of such a person entering their country. "This is impossible," said Diallo. "We have flight records. Kovach boarded that plane and landed in Paris. The French are protecting him." The Burkina Faso government took the issue to the international press. The world public began discussing the assassination attempt and the connections behind it. The African Union issued a condemnation on the matter and demanded a transparent investigation from France. Just then, a video was leaked to the Burkina Faso media. In the video, Philippe Moreau was having a phone conversation, and the content of the conversation was clearly related to the assassination plan. The video created great anger in the country, and protests began in front of the French embassy. The French government recalled Moreau and announced that the incident would be investigated. When Moreau returned to Paris, he left journalists' questions unanswered. The French Ministry of Foreign Affairs issued a statement saying the images may have been manipulated. However, independent sound experts confirmed that the video was authentic. In his statement to the media, Traoré said, "The new face of colonialism came with a bullet, but it will not intimidate us." Backed by public support, the leader suspended the activities of French companies in the country and signed new military agreements with Russia. The Western world viewed this move with concern, but Traoré did not back down. As a next step, Traoré reorganized mining concessions in the country. Tax rates on foreign companies' earnings were increased, and local communities were ensured a greater share of mining activities. This move disturbed global mining companies, and campaigns against Traoré began in the Western press. Articles were published in American and European media describing Traoré as a dictator and autocrat. Traoré's rapprochement with Russia and China was interpreted as moving away from democratic values. However, African and Asian media characterized Traoré as a hero of independence. The events in Burkina Faso also affected other African countries. Neighboring countries like Mali and Niger began to review their relations with France. A new wave of independence was rising in the region, and Traoré had become its pioneer. 3 months after the assassination attempt, Dragan Kovach's body was found in a hotel in Serbia. Documents found in the hotel room stated that he had been paid $2 million for the assassination and that the employer was a company called Mineral Resources International. It was alleged that this company had connections with the British intelligence service MI6. The Serbian police announced the cause of death as a heart attack, but the room had been cleaned to obscure evidence. Traoré's intelligence service was certain that Kovach had been killed. "They are silencing witnesses," said Diallo. "They eliminated him before Kovach could expose the forces behind him." Mineral Resources International immediately issued a statement denying the allegations. "Our company has no connection to either the assassination attempt or the person in question. These allegations are completely unfounded and fabricated to damage our reputation." However, the company's shares lost value following these reports. The Burkina Faso government froze all Mineral Resources International assets in the country and declared the company's executives persona non grata. The company's mining concessions in the country were canceled. Although this decision was taken to international courts, Traoré did not back down. As the international dimension of the incident grew, Traoré, backed by public support, initiated radical reforms. The leader, who strengthened his position in power, called for the closure of foreign military bases in the country and took steps towards nationalizing natural resources. Foreign powers began to lose their influence in Burkina Faso. These reforms received great support from the public, but worried international financial institutions. The IMF and World Bank tightened the terms of their loans to Burkina Faso. Traoré explained this situation openly to the people. "We will not accept economic models imposed from outside. We will create our own model." Traoré signed agreements with China and Russia to find alternative sources of financing. China agreed to provide low-interest loans for road, bridge, and dam construction in Burkina Faso. Russia offered cooperation proposals in the mining and energy sectors. Lieutenant Colonel Konaté's trial attracted great interest in the country. The court found him guilty of treason, but accepted his daughter's condition and his confession as mitigating factors. He was sentenced to 15 years in prison. Keeping his word, Traoré ensured that the state covered the treatment costs of Konaté's daughter. "Justice may be delayed, but it never disappears," said Traoré after Konaté's case was concluded. "My old friend's betrayal deeply hurt me, but I understand that people can make wrong decisions in moments of weakness due to the suffering of the Burkina Faso people. Some of us may stray onto the wrong path. Our duty is to provide our people with a better future and eliminate the conditions that prepare the ground for such betrayals." Traoré increased security measures even further in the period after the assassination attempt. A special protection team was established, and the team members were personally selected by Traoré. This team received special training in Russia and was equipped with the most modern equipment. Traoré now moved among the people with armored vehicles and bodyguards, but took care not to cut off contact with the people. Every week, he visited a different region, listening to the people's problems firsthand. These visits were conducted without prior announcement. Traoré sometimes visited markets in disguise and chatted with people. "A leader's greatest strength is his bond with his people," he said. "If you don't leave the palace, you can't see the realities." A year later, in his speech at the UN General Assembly, Traoré showed the green bullet and said, "This bullet didn't kill me, but it killed the concept of colonialism." He had now become a respected leader in the international arena. The Green Bullet incident was accepted as one of the turning points in modern African history and strengthened Traoré's leadership. Burkina Faso's economy began to revive thanks to Traoré's reforms. Revenues from the mining sector were now being channeled into infrastructure projects and social services. The poverty rate in the country began to decrease. Economic growth continued despite international sanctions and pressures. Traoré also established close relations with other African leaders. A new alliance called the Independence Bloc of the African Union was formed. Countries joining this alliance cooperated economically and militarily and displayed a common stance against economic models imposed by the West. Western powers watched these developments with concern. The Burkina Faso model could serve as an example for other African countries, and this situation could endanger the West's interests on the continent. But Traoré was determined. "Africa's destiny will be determined by Africans," he said in every speech. On the second anniversary of the assassination attempt, he addressed the nation. 2 years ago today, an attack was carried out against our independence and sovereignty. This attack did not intimidate us. On the contrary, it made us stronger. Today, there is a stronger, more independent, and more prosperous Burkina Faso. Our road is long and difficult, but together, there is no obstacle we cannot overcome. The Green Bullet was now exhibited at the National Museum in Ouagadougou. Visitors formed long queues to see the bullet. Museum guides told visitors the story of the assassination attempt and summarized Burkina Faso's struggle for independence. For Traoré, the Green Bullet was now not just a reminder of an assassination attempt, but a symbol of a new beginning. "Sometimes the events that change our lives occur at the most unexpected moments," he told his close circle. "That bullet was designed to kill me, but it gave a new life to me and my country." The Green Bullet case became the subject of academic papers and books written on international relations. It was examined in the context of Africa's struggle for independence and global competition over natural resources. Western academics interpreted the event as radical populism, while academics in Africa and Asia evaluated it as post-colonial resistance. Even in Hollywood, a film was made about the incident, but Traoré criticized it, saying it was a distorted narrative. "Africans should tell the story of Africans," he said, and provided funding for young directors from Burkina Faso to make films about the country's recent history. This event became not just an assassination attempt, but also a symbol of the international struggle over power balances and natural resources in Africa. With this struggle, he won against his enemies both inside and outside. Traoré set his country on a new path. The Green Bullet is now recognized worldwide as a symbol of the independence struggle. Western powers had to adopt a new strategy in Africa. Open interventions gave way to more complex and covert operations. However, African peoples were now more conscious and organized. Thanks to social media, information spread rapidly, and a collective resistance against manipulations was forming. Traoré developed a strategy in international relations that he called the multipolar Africa doctrine. According to this strategy, African countries should establish balanced relations with different global powers instead of being dependent on a single power. "New colonialism is not limited to a single country or bloc," Traoré said. "We must be vigilant against any power that claims rights over Africa's riches." 5 years after the Green Bullet incident, Burkina Faso had changed beyond recognition. The capital, Ouagadougou, had transformed into a modern city, and infrastructure investments had begun to bear fruit. Terrorist groups in the north of the country had been cleared out, and security had been established. Education and health indicators had improved, and the poverty rate had decreased. The country was still among the poor countries, but it had a promising outlook for the future.